The Dwarves have always been a really solid faction, even if they have sometimes felt a little bit lacking compared to the original Warhammer 1 factions. They keep to themselves and normally reign over the central mountains unless the Greenskins or the Skaven beat them to it. And the one thing they have always been known for from the start is the literal mountain of gold they can sit on if you play their cards right. Let's first go over the pros and cons of the campaign gameplay. As a proud member of the Order side, they have no problems making friends with the other members and forming the Mega Alliance to protect themselves in the late game. Because of this, they can be one of the richest factions in the game, with a combination of great income buildings, the ability to build size 4 resource buildings, and all of the trade opportunity with the rest of the Order side. And finally, the Underway's movement stance allows them to get around the map at quite a rapid pace for a faction with such short legs, even if it can be a little bit of a risk. As for the cons, the initial grudges combined with the many that will inevitably occur during the early wars can quickly add up and penalise your faction right out the gate, resulting in a bit of a stunted start to your campaign. Early on, when they don't have a lot of income, the expensive units can cause you to run a little low on cash and again slow down your growth significantly. And finally, nearly all the factions start in the central mountains, which is ridden with greenskins all looking for a piece of you, so fighting them off can be a huge challenge, especially once they get the wars going. Just before we get into these factions though, we first need to thank the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. As you should know by now, Skillshare is the online learning community with thousands of classes for people that love learning or just want to expand their creative skill set. If you have a specific skill that you're trying to learn, chances are Skillshare probably has a class for it. From photography to illustration to video editing to writing, Skillshare has thousands of classes on all sorts of creative topics, so it'll definitely be something that's interesting to you. One class I've been enjoying recently is the Productivity for Creatives class by Thomas Frank. It goes over ways to make being creative easier and more regular through discipline and routines. It really helps me develop my own routine and mindset to help me get more work done and focus better without getting distracted as much. If this isn't for you, there are still thousands of classes with new ones being added every single week, totally ad-free. So if this sounds like something you'd like to check out, then click the link in the description where the first 1,000 people to click that link will receive 1 free month of Skillshare. Massive thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video and supporting the channel, really do appreciate it. Now, onto the video. Now let's go through the different dwarf factions. First up, we have Karaz Akarak, and it is led by Thor Grim, Grudgebearer. His faction has a chance to receive additional rewards for every grudge resolved. As far as I can tell, these are different effects that can proc when clearing a grudge, such as increased control and other buffs to the faction. He also gained 20 relations with dwarves, minus 15% upkeep for longbeards and hammerers, and 1 recruit rank for all hammerer units. All of their commandments also have more powerful effects. You get an extra minus 5 corruption on the Venerate the Ancestors, double the income increase on High King's Tribute, an extra 10 growth on Empower the Guilds, and an extra 15% recruitment cost reduction on Masters of Stone and Steel. As for Thor Grim's army, he grants 15% physical resistance and the Guardian ability for hammerers, and he has plus 75% to his leadership aura size. His faction starts in Karaz Akarak, and his starting army has hammerers, longbeards, great weapons dwarves, great weapons dwarf warriors, regular dwarf warriors, miners, 2 quarrelers, and a gyro bomber, as well as a master engineer hero. For his climate preferences, wasteland, mountain, and savanna are suitable, frozen, temperate, and deserts are unpleasant, and magical forest, ocean, chaotic wasteland, temperate island, and jungle are uninhabitable. To achieve the short victory as Thor Grim, you must complete at least 1 major grudge from the Great Book, and occupy, loot, raise or sack 30 different settlements. So the major grudges are the ones you start off with, so completing any one of those will get you 1 step closer to victory. Honestly, you can do basically any of them pretty quickly, so just expand wherever you feel like, and you'll have them complete in no time. I like to expand north first towards the Crooked Moon, so fighting them or wiping them out will clear 1 grudge nice and early, and then all you need to do is expand. You can continue north towards Azhag, or go south towards Queek, or head into the Badlands towards Wurzag. No matter what you do, keep up relations with other dwarves and try for confederations whenever you can for a ton of land and resources in record speed. Next we have Karak Kadrin, and they are led by Ungrim Ironfist. His faction gains minus 75% construction cost for Slayer buildings, minus 50% recruitment cost for Slayer units, and plus 10% speed for all infantry units. His army also gains minus 25% upkeep, 5 melee attack, and the Journey's End passive for all Slayer units. And his faction of course starts in Karak Kadrin. His starting army has 2 Slayers, some Dwarf Warriors, some Trollhammer Torpedoes Iron Drakes, some Thunderers, and 2 Great Weapons Quarrelers. And he also starts with a Rune Smith hero. His climate preferences are the same as Thor Grim's, but Chaotic Wasteland moves from uninhabitable to unpleasant. To achieve the short victory here, you need to build the Great Slayer Shrine in Karak Kadrin and reach rank 25 with Ungrim Ironfist, as well as occupy, loot, raise or sack the 30 different settlements. This is another fairly simple victory to achieve here, since all you need to do is grow your starting province and level up your legendary lord alongside the usual settlements. Simply go wherever you please and make sure you keep growing your home whenever possible. You can head to the north to settle an early grudge and secure the top of the mountain pass, and then work your way south securing more land as you go. Of course, keep other dwarf factions on side for potential confederations, and you'll be golden. In no time, Ungrim will be at high level and you'll own tons of land, and the shrine will be built. Next up we have Clan Agrund, and they are led by Belegar Ironhammer. This faction suffers plus 50% all upkeep costs until Karak 8 Peaks is recaptured. He also starts with 4 Clan Agrund Ancestor heroes, and he also has unique building chains at Karak 8 Peaks for the Ancestor tombs, and his faction gains 10 leadership when laying siege or encircling. For his army, he grants 10 leadership when fighting versus Greenskins, Ogres and Skaven, and his entire army gains Vanguard deployments during underway battles. His faction starts at Zarek Zil, and his starting army has Hammerers, 3 Dwarf Warriors, 2 Miners, and 2 Rangers. And of course he starts with the 4 Ancestral heroes, 2 Thanes, a Master Engineer, and a Runesmith. His climate preferences are the same as Thor Grim, and for his victory conditions you need to destroy the Crooked Moon Mutinous Gits, and Clan Moors, control Karak 8 Peaks either by direct ownership, vassals or military allies, and occupy, loot, raise or sack 30 different settlements. Belegar has one of the hardest starts in the game, mainly because you need to take Karak 8 Peaks to get the ball rolling. To start off with, move north to complete your starting province and trigger a confederation with Karak Hearn, then build up the best army you can and head over to Karak 8 Peaks to take it nice and early. If you manage it, you can start to relax a little and get to work on those conditions. If you head north, you'll run into Skarsnik and you can take him out and get a load of land. If you head south, you'll run into Queek and get a load of land again. So go wherever you want first, or get a second army on the go, and then go in both directions at once if you feel like you can manage it. Once everyone is taken out, you should be most of the way towards those settlements, especially if you manage any confederations. The Ancestral Throng is led by Grombrindle the White Dwarf, and his faction gains plus 60% evasion chance when using the Underways, plus 20% weapon strength when fighting elves, and they can call upon the power of the Ancestor Gods. This is an event that pops every 25 turns after turn 3 and offers you the choice of 4 buffs to the faction. Each focuses on a key aspect of the campaign, so choose what you need the most now, and for the next 25 turns, since you won't be able to change it for a while. Grombrindle's army gains 10 defense for Quarrelers and Iron Drakes, 50% to their reinforcement range, and plus 10 leadership to all units. His faction starts at the Drakla Spire, and his starting army has Hammerers, Dwarf Warriors, Miners, Iron Drakes, Thunderers, 2 Quarrelers, and a Gyrocopter. He also starts with a Runesmith hero. His climate preferences are the same as Thor Grim, but Frozen has been moved to Suitable. And to achieve the short victory, you need to destroy the faction of Nagarond and occupy, loot, raise or sack 30 different settlements. All you need to do here is take out Nagarond, and they are just a hop, skip and a jump from your starting location. Finish off that starting war, then get the biggest army you can to take them out super early on. Once they're taken care of, you can either head north and east to take over the top of the map against Dark Elves, Norsca and eventually Chaos, or you can go south and find a ton of Dark Elves, Wood Elves and High Elves. Basically, it's going to be a lot of elves, so choose which you want to fight and gobble up all those settlements. And our final faction is Ironbrow's Expedition, and they are of course led by Thoric Ironbrow. His faction gains plus 100% oath gold from all buildings, minus 50% oath gold cost when crafting runes, plus 5 recruit rank and minus 25% upkeep for runesmiths, and he also has a unique set of grudges to reforge various artifacts. These require him to own certain settlements to collect the parts, and once both parts are collected, the items are automatically forged, granting various rewards and clearing the associated grudge. Thoric's army gains 10 armor, 3 armor piercing damage, and 15% reload time reduction for Bolt Thrower, Grudge Thrower, and Crawler units. His faction starts in Karak Zorn, and for his starting army, he has Ironbreakers, Great Weapons Longbeards, 3 Dwarf Warriors, 2 Quarrelers, and a unit of Grudge Throwers, as well as a Runesmith hero. His climate preferences are the same as Thor Grim, but jungle has been moved to Suitable, and for his victory conditions, he must reforge 5 artifacts via the Forge, and occupy, loot, raise or sack 30 different settlements. These artifacts are spread throughout the entire Central Mountain Pass, so as long as you keep moving through it, you can keep grabbing parts and reforging as you go. There's one in the south, but after that, it's north all the way, so keep moving and expanding into hostile lands and making friends with any fellow dwarves. If you make it all the way to the top, you'll have a ton of land and plenty of artifacts, so have a pretty simple win. Now we come to the faction mechanics. First up, we have grudges. Over the course of the campaign, various events will occur which triggers a grudge against the offending faction. These can be things such as trespassing in your territory, taking your settlements, beating your armies, and more. The more grudges you have and the longer they go unresolved, the higher the severity gets, which basically means your people are displeased with so many grudges being unresolved. This is all shown by a bar at the top of the screen, and the higher the bar gets, you suffer more penalties with relation to other dwarfs, research, and control. But you are buffed with charge bonus for all units, and a chance of Slayers being added to the Regiment of Renown pool to be instantly recruited. When the severity is low, the relations, research, and control are instead buffed, as well as gaining construction cost reduction, but a much smaller chance of extra Slayers. You can of course reduce the severity by clearing grudges, and most of the time this is just kicking the faction's ass who has offended you, and of course if the associated faction is wiped out, all of their grudges are cleared. Clearing grudges also rewards you with Oath Gold, which is a currency used in the Forge, as well as various other rewards such as runes and cash. Honestly, grudges aren't nearly as punching as they used to be, so don't worry too much about rushing to clear them unless you're really hurting from the effects. Most of the time you can just clear them when convenient to you and enjoy the Oath Gold and low severity benefits. It's not worth going super out of your way and delaying the campaign just to clear a single grudge. Now, next mechanic is the Forge and Oath Gold. Oath Gold is the currency we mentioned a bunch of times up till now that you earn from grudges, but you can also earn it from post-battle loot, certain buildings, hero actions, missions, and recycling items in the Forge. It can then be used inside the Forge to craft various items for your lords and heroes to use, and you can craft weapons, armor, talismans, enchanted items, character runes, and banner runes. There are different rarities of each item, and the higher the quality, the more Oath Gold you need to craft them, even require you to have access to certain resources, either directly or via trade. I'm not going to read out every single item and its effects, but I'll put them on the screen now. They can have some pretty powerful effects, so are for sure worth looking into, especially since there's not really anything else to spend Oath Gold on. And their final mechanic is their movement stance, the Underways. The Dwarves have a unique-ish movement stance known as the Underways that allows them to travel under the map to move large distances in difficult to navigate terrain. This stance also grants immunity to most attrition, as well as 25% to the ambush defense chance. Although enemies can't intercept you when using the Underways and choose to attack you, and if you lose, your army will be wiped out. Use this to move quickly when not too close to enemies, especially since you can't attack this way. We now come to the Lord skills. First up we have Thor Grim Grudgebearer. Root match first, as usual, and honestly this first block is pretty poor, so go with what you feel. I went for Miner's Instinct and Purebeard for some underweight interception and Untainted. Then we grab Iron Will to get to Lightning Strike, Inspirational Leader, and Inquiring Mind, which are all obviously very good. Go into his unique Ancient Bloodline tree once you can to get great buffs for all sorts in the faction, and you can grab grudges against whoever you're fighting at the time for some useful buffs. His top row has all sorts like auras, leadership, army buffs, and missile resistance, so are all pretty great, so grab them all. Then go into Inspiring Presence to make buffs to your endgame units to make your army even more powerful, and finally if you have any spare points at the end, then the full plate armor line will make him better in combat, and I would go for anything defensive to make him as tanky as possible. Next we come to Ungrim, and we're going to start off going straight into his Deathblow line since it's unique to him, and makes him carry battles and buff slayers, so works well for his playstyle. Then he can pretty much follow on from Thor Grim. Root match line going all the same choices, the top row for all kinds of buffs which are all useful, Inspiring Presence for late game unit buffs, but maybe go for slayers if you want to do a nice bit of theming, and finally the full plate armor line for all kinds of buffs, but this time go all out offense as is the Slayer way. Elegant Iron Hammer is next, starts off the same as Thor Grim, so go into Root Marcher and pick up all the same skills, then at level 12 go into Rally the Holds for all kinds of buffs to nearly everything in the faction, then copy Thor Grim again to the end. Top row has all those buffs for the army and himself, so grab those, Inspiring Presence for those buffs to endgame units, and then full plate armor, and again tanky is the way to go, since his damage isn't amazing. Next up we have Grombrindle, and we're going to start in the blue tree, but Grombrindle's is totally unique to him. Basically everything here is worth picking up, but some standouts are absolutely relentless and Eagerkin for movement range and recruitment cost reductions. Once you get to level 12, the Mount Strider line has great buffs to himself and his army, so everything is worth grabbing. Time of the Ancestors reduces the time between calling the Ancestor God, so it's great to keep the buffs doing exactly what you need them. The top row has a ton of buffs for him and his army, so again, pretty much everything is a great choice. Forging is the only one I would say isn't amazing. And then Inspiring Presence for those endgame unit buffs, and full plate armor some combat buffs, and I'd focus Grombrindle on attack since he can clap basically anything he gets close to, so why not make him even better? And our final legendary lord is Thoric Ironbrow. Of course, first of all, you want to grab those runes to get him having much more impact in battles. Once you reach level 9 and unlock the Anvil of Doom mount, you can go into the Connecting Tree for some great buffs to Thoric. Then at level 7 you can go into the Fiery Temple line for more runes, buffs to the faction and more, so again, grab it all. Then a fairly normal finish. Root Marcher for the usual choices, top row has resistance, then Inspiring Presence for those endgame units. Our first generic lord is the Lord. They have a super generic skill build. Root Match follow the usual choices, top row for all kinds of buffs to him the faction, Inspiring Presence for endgame unit buffs, and then full plate armor for combat, focusing on defense. And our final lord is the Rune Lord. First things first, you want to grab all of those runes, at least in the base form, to get them doing something in combat other than just sitting there. Go for the exact same blue tree as everyone else. His top row has buffs for Oath Gold, leadership, various army buffs, and aura and missile resist, and basically all of those are worth picking up. And finally we finish in the Inspiring Presence line for those endgame unit buffs. Next up we have the hero skills, and first of all we have the legendary heroes from Clan Angrund. First up we have Dramar Hammerfist. On the campaign map he can steal technology, wound, block armies, boost income, and increase mobility when embedded in an army. I love having this guy in an army since the buffs to ranged units are amazing with the dwarf playstyle. Increasing mobility is always great for getting armies moving around the map a lot further, a lot faster. Then Break Open the Casks line has buffs to ranged units in the army, and basically the entire line is worth grabbing so you can have him stand near ranged units and get a ton of value. Then you can decide if you want him short range or long range and either go for Grudge Raker or Deadeye. I like Deadeye so I can have him near my ranged troops and have him fire whilst he keeps them buffed and well stocked. His top row has buffs to his damage, charge bonus, speed and missile resist, as well as the flash bomb ability, and basically all of it is well worth picking up at some point. And finally, any spare points can go into boost income for some free cash. Next up we have King Lun Ironhammer. On the campaign map he can assault garrisons, assassinate, assault units, spread control in a local province, and provides training when embedded in an army. This guy can either be a campaign assassin or a general fighter in battle. Since you have 2 ghost stains, I like one in battle and one on the campaign map. The only reason they work in battle is the ethereal, however, so if the enemy has anything magical on their side, they can stay on the campaign map. If you want to use them on the campaign map, you go for assassinate and then specialist and the rest of the blue tree apart from training, and you're done. If you want to use them in battle, then grab training for free XP for the whole army, then head into Blade Master to upgrade them in all kinds of combat-based ways. Don't really have to be picky here since eventually you'll get everything, but starting with defense is probably the way to go since their damage isn't anything amazing. Once you can, choose one along the Keeper of the Gate line for a choice of buffs to himself and the army, and I quite like Ironbeard for those Iron Drake buffs. And finally that top row has buffs to damage, charge bonus, speed and missile resist. Next we have Throny Ironbrow, and on the campaign map he can damage walls, wound, hinder replenishment, cleanse corruption locally, and provide scouting when embedded in an army, and with skills can sharpen weapons or harden armor. I like to use this guy exclusively in battle since you can't use the spells on the campaign map, so it's a bit of a waste. First you want to grab all of those runes as soon as possible since without them these are pretty weak heroes. Once that's all done you can choose either harden armor or sharpen weapons. I like sharpen weapons for extra oomph in melee and range. The top row has great buffs for damage, charge bonus, speed and missile resist, and finally the blue tree has scouting for extra items, and cleanse corruptions help clean up provinces as you move through them. Halkan Half Stonebeard is pretty much the exact same as King Lun Ironhammer, so we're not going to go through it again because the exact same advice applies to him. I'm prepared to hear that again. Banes, again, are basically the same as King Lun Ironhammer and Halkan Half Stonebeard. The only difference is they don't start with Immortality, and I would always use them on the campaign map if you ask me, since they just don't offer much in combat. Runesmiths are the exact same as Throny Ironbrow, but they don't start with Immortality. Build and use him, the exact same. And the Master Engineer is the exact same as Dramata Hammerfist, but doesn't start off with Immortality, so build and use him, again, the exact same. Next up we come to the commandments. Venerate the Ancestors provides increased control and untainted corruption. This is obviously useful when you've taken over a province and want to cleanse up the corruption and prevent any rebellions from the low control. High King's Tribute provides increased income from all buildings, and of course it's great for some extra cash. Empower the Guild provides increased growth and tradable resources produced faction-wide, and reduce construction costs for all buildings. This is the default option since it's great for growth, increases your factions, income from trade, and allows you to save money whenever you build anything, so why would you turn it off unless everything is totally built to the max? And finally, Masters of Stone and Steel provides increased recruitment capacity and reduced recruitment cost, which is of course the option you want whenever you're recruiting. And finally we come to the Dwarf Research Tree. The Dwarf Tree has 2 sections and they are pretty much just campaign and battle focus. In the campaign part you'll find buffs for everything like income, relations, commandments and everything else related to a smooth overworld campaign. And in the battle section you of course have buffs to unit stats, costs and rank, so nothing too special in either case. I like to start off by boosting early game units to make my battles a lot easier, then hop between the trees as I need to. So I go into campaign to buff relations to expand my trade, then come back to buff thunderers once I unlock them, and so on and so forth until I have endgame units and a notion of cash. Not really much to say here since it really is one of the most straightforward trees in the game. That's everything you need to know to play the Dwarves in campaign, and we've got the battle guide coming next Friday to run you through the entire roster as well as compositions and more, so subscribe if you want to see that. Hoping to hit 50k by the end of the year, so I sure would appreciate the assistance. Also join the Discord to vote on who the next guide should be for. Voting closes in about a week, so make your choice before it's too late. If you enjoyed this video and or found it useful, then consider dropping it a like. If you really enjoy the content and want to support it directly, then consider becoming a member on YouTube or a patron on the Patreon. Doing so gets you early insights into future content, increased voting power, discounts on merch, and shoutouts at the end of videos, just like Henry took of his support at the officers tier. Thank you to all supporters, one last thank you for watching, and for now, I've been COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I will see you next turn.